At some point, you made a choice, maybe without thinking much about it. Two animals have lived alongside humans longer than any others, and you went with the one that doesn't come when it's called, which is a strange pick if you stop and look at it. And psychologists have stopped and looked at it for over a decade now, and the stuff they keep finding isn't small. Some of it's flattering. One finding sounds like an insult until you turn it over, and the one that actually surprised the researchers is sitting at the end of this video, because honestly, it doesn't make sense until the rest of the picture is built. Stick around for it. It might be the truest thing anyone's ever said about you. Okay, start with the biggest study out there. 2010, University of Texas. A personality psychologist asked over 4,500 people one simple question: cat person, dog person, both, or neither. Then every single one of them sat through a full personality test, the Big Five, which is basically the measuring stick psychologists trust most. How outgoing you are, how organized, how anxious, how curious, that kind of thing. And one trait jumped out for the cat people: openness, which in plain words is your appetite for the unusual, new ideas, strange art, questions that don't have clean answers. People high in openness read between the lines. They'd rather be interested than comfortable. So there's your first keeper, and it's a good one. If you chose a cat, odds are you're the curious type. The person who picks the complicated book, the weird movie nobody else wanted to watch, the animal that has to be figured out, instead of the one that comes pre-translated. Hang on to that phrase, because it comes back later. You chose the animal that has to be figured out. But look, openness is the comfortable finding. Nobody argues with being called curious. The next one gets thrown at cat people like a rock, and it turns out to be maybe the best news in the whole study. That surprise from the beginning is still coming too, but it needs this next piece first. Quick question before that though, and it's worth actually answering in the comments. How did your cat end up with you? Picked from a litter? Pulled out of a shelter? Or did they just show up one day and never leave? The way a cat arrives usually says something about the person who kept them. Drop your story below. Alright, the rock. That same Texas study found cat people scoring higher on a trait psychologists call neuroticism, which is a genuinely terrible name for what it measures. In plain words, it's emotional sensitivity, how much you notice, how deeply things register, how loud the weather gets on the inside. You can see where the stereotype comes from. Dog people, sunny and easygoing. Cat people, anxious, overthinking everything. Most people hear that finding and read it as a diagnosis. It isn't one. Sensitivity is a volume knob. The same wiring that makes a bad week feel heavier is the wiring that catches a friend's mood from across the room. That hears the false note in a, "No, really, it's fine." That notices the smallest shift in the house before anyone else does. It costs something, sure. It also sees everything. Now think about which animal that person went and picked. A cat communicates in millimeters, an ear rotated back half an inch, a tail tip ticking, a slow blink that most people miss entirely. Cats don't shout their feelings. They publish them in fine print, and then they bond with whoever bothers to read it. There's a name for this worth remembering: the sensitivity trait. The trait the world keeps calling a flaw happens to be the exact equipment a cat is looking for. The quiet animal finds the person built to hear quiet things. Of course it does. One honest caution though, because this channel doesn't oversell science. Personality research deals in averages, not verdicts. There are loud, sunny cat people everywhere, and plenty of deeply sensitive dog people too. This is about tendencies across thousands of people, not a rule stamped on your forehead. And hey, if nobody's ever framed your sensitivity as equipment instead of a problem, that's kind of the whole point of this channel. One cat behavior at a time. Subscribing takes about 2 seconds, and it keeps these translations coming. Because the next finding isn't about how cat people feel. It's about what they need, and more interestingly, what they don't. To be fair, dog people had their wins in that study too. Higher extraversion, higher agreeableness, meaning they draw energy from company, and there's real comfort for them in being needed. And a dog delivers that need right on schedule. The door greeting, the following from room to room, those eyes checking in over and over, always asking the same happy question. A cat needs you too. But quietly, it looks like a body choosing your couch out of all the furniture in the house, a shadow turning up in whatever room you just walked into, A warm weight landing on the bed at 11 p.m. without a single sound. Nothing gets announced. Nothing performs. Choosing that, call it the quiet vote. A vote for a life that doesn't have to perform its feelings to prove them. The person who casts it is usually someone who can sit in a silent room without reaching for their phone, and who isn't rattled by an animal that sometimes just says no. That's not coldness, by the way. That's security. Affection that doesn't need a receipt every hour to stay real. Hold on to that word, no, actually. It's the doorway to the ending. One more piece, and it's the strangest one. In most surveys, dogs are the default. More households have them, more movies star them. Dog person is the answer. Nobody questions at a dinner table. So choosing a cat means going against the current, at least a little. And in 2014, a small study out of a college in Wisconsin caught exactly that pattern. Their cat people scored higher on nonconformity, less pulled around by what everyone else is doing. That same group also happened to score higher on a reasoning test, which cat people love bringing up at parties. But honestly, hold that one loosely. One study, one campus, a few hundred students. A tendency, not a trophy. The nonconformity part, though, that one fits everything else here. High openness, comfort with quiet, a willingness to live with an animal that disappoints expectations at least once a day. That's someone who doesn't need the popular choice to feel like the right one. Which makes this the moment to ask for the one thing this channel actually runs on. If these videos keep translating your cat, and apparently translating you, hit subscribe. Costs nothing, and it tells this channel to keep going. Now, the finding that surprised the researchers, the one this whole video has been walking toward. Because under every stereotype about cat people, there's one ugly assumption doing all the work, that choosing a cat means settling for less love. A smaller version, a colder one. And the research just keeps refusing to say that. When scientists measure attachment, the actual emotional bond between an owner and their animal, cat owners keep landing right alongside dog owners. Same depth, same grief when it ends, which anyone who's been through it already knows. Researchers have even measured oxytocin, the closeness chemical, the same one that shows up between parents and babies, rising during quiet contact between cats and their people. So the bond isn't smaller, it's shaped differently. And the shape is the whole answer. A dog's love comes standard, beautiful, loyal, automatic, handed to nearly anyone who feeds and pats and stays. A cat's love is opt-in. It gets extended one decision at a time, to specific people after a frankly insulting amount of evaluation, and it can be withdrawn, which means every single time it's given, it was given on purpose. So here's what psychology keeps circling around. Cat people, on average, prefer a love that's chosen, over a love that's automatic. Being selected over being adored by default. That's not a smaller love. That's a love with a signature on it. And that's what your choice says about you. Not aloof, not settling. Someone who looked at guaranteed affection and quietly asked for something harder, something more specific. Pick this person. On purpose. Every day. Worth repeating one last time. All of this describes averages across big groups. None of it is destiny, and none of it makes dog people wrong. Different needs, different animals, both completely real. The research maps tendencies. The cat asleep in your house right now is the only data point that actually knows you. And if you've ever been teased for it, told cats don't really love people, told a real pet would greet you at the door, go ahead and set that down. Nothing is missing in you. You didn't fail to be a dog person. You just figured out, maybe without ever saying it out loud, that being chosen means more to you than being celebrated. Your cat worked that out about you a long time ago. It's probably why they're still here. So, pulling it all together, the curiosity that picks the complicated animal, the sensitivity that reads fine print, the security that doesn't need proof every hour, the independence that skips the default, and underneath all of it, a preference for love that gets decided, not dispensed. Which leaves one question for the comments. What's the moment your cat wrecked the stereotype? The moment the supposedly aloof animal did something so openly loving it caught you completely off guard? Those stories deserve to be told. Because in the end, choosing a cat was never about wanting less. It was about wanting it to mean more. And if this raised the obvious next question, how do you actually tell when a cat has chosen someone? There's a video on this channel breaking down the signs your cat trusts you, the signals most owners walk right past. It's on screen now. Somewhere in your house is an animal that reads you better than most people do, and stayed anyway. That was never an accident. That was a decision, and the decision was you.